you can heal from a punch. I'm being very, very calloused right now. Please understand. I'm purposely doing this, right?
I get what you're saying, and this is a very fair conversation.
You can heal from a punch. You can heal from psychological manipulation. You can heal from all that stuff, but not if you're dead. So it's better that we remove all the guns from the home. What's your comeback?
At what point is that? So, okay. I'm going to use your lane to come back with this, right? Because I know that I was told this, that it is a 100% chance that you are that every time that you're continue to be hit, right? Or every episode, right? Because it goes in cycles, right? That whole circle of violence.
Sure.
And every episode, it gets worse every time because they'll continue to push that limit. At what point is that next time going to be death?
Great comeback. No, I appreciate that because I was hoping that I teed it up because I was hoping that would be your response. You and I have never discussed this because we just danced around it for a little while because we were distracted at that conference. But I appreciate that you said that because that's exactly where I would go. I mean, Zephyr Wellness providing the clinical services at Safe Embrace, literally the only place in town that has clinical services at its sexual and domestic violence resource center. We see this all the time, and I make that argument. I'm like, well, that's great. So you interrupted the cycle, or you removed some component of it, but that you didn't remove all weapons from the home.
Right, and you didn't break the cycle. Like I had one of my
you didn't break it. You interrupted
posts,
it.
Yeah, you're not breaking the cycle. So one of my social media posts that had huge impact, and I was pissed when I wrote it, and I was very emotional, which actually ended up working to my advantage, was when, and I apologize for bringing this to a political place, but this is very relevant, is that Beto O'Rourke made the comment that we're going to remove, and this isn't his AR comment, but in his tweets, he made comments in reference to, we are going to get rid of these assault weapons. And my response was, you're going to get rid of assault weapons? Are you going to take away my ex-husband's hands that he used to assault me with? Are you going to cut his hands off when he when he picked me up off the floor by my throat and held me against a wall? Are you going to take his hands when he fractured my teeth and left me with permanent damage in my tendons that I live with every day of my life? Assault is a verb. It's not a noun. And if you cannot continue to manipulate language for political agenda with policy that is going to continue to hurt people, because an assault is an assault, regardless of how it's done. My ex-husband was a foot taller and 100 pounds heavier than me, and he could have killed me with his hands and almost did. So had there been a firearm in my home at that time, I guarantee you I would not have been assaulted. End of story. Mm-hmm. So because that would have equalized our sides. So I mean, that is the great, like the whole, Colt, what does he say? There's the old Western quote that not all men are, something about men aren't created equal, but Colt makes them equul or something.
Oh yeah, I have heard that.
Men and women aren't equal, but Colt. Anyway, there's a whole saying to it or whatever. But the point is that there's all of this talk consistently about, we need to get rid of the weapon. We need to get rid of the weapon, to your point, right? Like, you're not breaking the cycle. You're just taking a component out, which is the weapon, but you're not.
It's a weapon.
You're not taking the knives out of the home. You're not taking the baseball bat out of the home. You're not taking the hammers. I think, wasn't there a recent study that was just done that says that there were more deaths by hammers?
Yeah, I think it was blunt instruments. Blunt instruments.
Than rifles or something? Yeah, so sorry you cut out a little bit there. I didn't mean to talk over you.
Blunt instruments, I think was the term.
Yeah, so I mean, that is such... I get really pissed about that, particularly because that is such a manipulative language that's being used, to write policy that for political agenda that just completely dismisses, victims, and in my case, domestic violence victims, and puts that it literally is continuing to perpetuate victim mentality. And I just think one of my biggest statements that I made that's been very bold, and other people have made it in other ways, but is to politicians or anybody for that matter, do not tell me that you support a woman's right to choose when you vehemently take away a woman's right to choose how she defends herself.
And on that note, we've hit an hour. because I think that's a great.
Is that a good mic drop moment to end on?
That's a great punctuation. Yeah. And again, we try to keep clear politics on this, but invariably they're going to enter in because we're talking about policy that either protects or doesn't protect people. So I appreciate you. One last thing though, did I hear you say that you didn't know about a gun culture until a year ago?
Yeah. So I think you met Mike's friend Colin, right? Did you meet Mike's friend Colin?
I don't think so.
But you're familiar with it has a pretty big, place in America, but particularly in gun culture. And so when I spoke out about 1639, I said, I wrote it on my social media, and I said, for those of you that voted for this and you didn't read it, let me tell you what you just did to me as a domestic violence, what you just did to domestic violence victims. And people, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I'm like, I know you didn't, because you didn't read the law. You just ran with it, and you didn't read what it actually said. And that, this, if nothing else, should be a lesson to you to read the legislation. They intentionally make it vague so you don't read it. And, and I apologize for bringing a political aspect to this, but, my entrance into fighting for domestic violence rights was based in poorly written policy. So I kind of avoided it, unfortunately. But, so I shared it on my social media, and then I shared it on my Facebook, and then I shared it on my Instagram, and he got tagged in it, and he shared it. And
you're talking about Colin Noir.
Colin Noir,
Collins,
yeah. So, and he shared that post, and here I am 10 months later being interviewed by Zephyr Wellness on the negative impact of these laws on domestic violence survivors because of their what it does, because it puts them in fear of not going to get help. For their mental health care. And
now that you've been on Noggin Notes, and I don't know that you can climb any higher, to be honest.
Well, I'm telling you, this is it, man. If Representative Massey doesn't see me now with this on my resume, I don't know.
Yeah.
The world is hopeless. I don't know what to.
Our reach is small but mighty. Well, Kerry, I really appreciate you. We're a little over an hour now. That's been a great podcast, great conversation, I think. You definitely brought a new perspective, a different viewpoint. I hope people appreciate it. And I like hearing this stuff because, like I said, just a couple of weeks ago when we met, I had no idea. I thought I knew about domestic violence, but I didn't know about the defensive aspect of it. I didn't know the impact of ERPO laws. I didn't know how, gun control played into that. I didn't know the psychological aspects of victimhood without defense if you go seek treatment. All this stuff is like, it's floating out there, but until you meet more people who can connect the dots, it just continues to float. And so I really appreciate you connecting those dots in a new way that I had not considered before. And I hope our listening audience really embraces it too, because this is fascinating. And I think people need to understand that. What's the statistic? 1 in 4 women or something is going to be abused.
I'm sorry, you cut out just a little bit there. What did you say? What was that piece?
I don't know where I cut out. I was just talking because I do that.
You cut out when you said when people are connecting the dots.
Oh yeah, so when people like you connect the dots in a unique way, it really helps to crystallize things for people, and it brings more light to the subject matter. And I consider myself knowledgeable about domestic violence, but I didn't consider these angles. And so we're talking about a very large percentage of population. I don't know I just spit out a 1 in 4 number, but that may have been sexual assaults. But I don't know how many.
1 in 3. Well, depending on the study, 1 in 3 to 1 in 5 women are domestic violence victims of domestic violence, and 1 in 7 men.
At some point in their lives, right?
Solid? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and the point is, you're talking about either 20 to 35% of the population of females. Correct. And 16% of the population of males have been abused at some point, either psychologically, they've been restricted in their access to things, they've been beaten, they've been whatever it is. That's a significant portion of the population that would essentially seek mental health services, and in so doing, lose some of their liberties. That's unacceptable. Yeah. That's just unacceptable, and it further stigmatizes our profession. I don't want stigma in our profession. We battle it enough as it is, and we can't avoid the policy conversation because it's the policy that creates the stigma. So I just appreciate that you came on and you're as bold and outspoken as you are, because I think we need more of that. We need more candid conversations and stop people tiptoeing around this stuff because it matters and affects 100 million people at least in this country alone if we're going on those numbers. So,
well, and to put that in perspective, the estimated number of firearm owners in this country are 150 million.
Right.
Right. So just to put that in perspective, like, so how many of those people are living in fear of having their firearms taken away simply because of a misguided, poorly written policy based on mental health.
Yeah, and we say, okay, so what? They keep living in fear, whatever. At least they get their guns taken away and they're safe, or whatever falsehoods we trot out there. The bottom line is our suicide rate is increasing, and suicides by firearm are increasing. So, like, we have to do something to combat this. Unless the people who are making these policies literally don't care that people are dying, which I don't think they're going to go on record to say. So
no, but that's the other rabbit hole.
Yeah. So and we don't need to dip into conspiracy.
Safety, or is it about control? And y'all can edit that out if you need to. But
no. I mean, but that's legit. I mean, we don't know. Yeah. We just don't know. But the point is, when people are dying, we can all agree that it's a bad thing. And when they're dying by their own hand because they're afraid to go get treatment, that's an even worse thing. So let's evaluate the policies and make reasonable policies, or at least retract the ones that aren't reasonable, and keep people alive, and then allow them to recover. And that's what this conversation is about. This is what this whole thing is about with Walk Talk America and with We the Female and with what Zephyr's trying to do and Noggin Notes in broadcasting this stuff. I mean, I just, used a couple hours of my day that could otherwise be spent running my business because I think it's important to share this stuff. You literally do this for free, because it's important to help people heal. We're not counting the cost. We're just sharing it because it doesn't do any good locked up inside our heads. So
no, and it's so important. And I'm grateful to you for this lane. You're the first podcast and the first interview that I've done outside of the gun culture that's been willing to hear my voice about this and understand that this is bigger than the gun. This is literally, women being marginalized because of their mental health care because they were a victim of a circumstance that wasn't their fault. And that what does that do, right, to women in society, right? That is not equality, people.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to you for giving me this lane outside of the gun culture to be able to talk about this and to start to bring some awareness to a very serious issue that is completely swept under the rug that I truly worry about these victims and where they are with their heads.
It's hard to talk about because people don't have a well-formed opinion because it's so mercurial, and because of the way the policies are written vaguely, it's hard to form a well-founded opinion. You've done that. You've formed well-founded opinions. They're multifaceted, which takes a little effort. I mean, it took us an hour and 10 minutes to get through this because it is so complex, and a lot of people are just let's face it, America's lazy and they don't want to do the work. So it is hard to have that conversation. It's much easier just to walk away from it and be like, whatever. More people died, whatever. Like what?
Right,
no,
right.
Stop
more people
that.
died. We just need to get rid of the gun.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kerry. As always.
Thank you, Jake. Not from State Farm.
Not from State Farm. Not wearing khakis. Not even wearing a red shirt today. I'm wearing my South Dakota State University Jackrabbits polo that my father-in-law gave me. Go Jackrabbits.
The Jackrabbits are formidable.
Yes.
Jackrabbits are very scary, frightening individuals.
You almost got that out without laughing.
I can't.
On behalf of the Noggin Notes team and the Zephyr Wellness crew, I wish you all great mental wellness. Thanks, Kerry.
Thank you very much, and be safe, ladies. Strong women, safe communities.